Welcome to what we're kind of considering episode 1 or episode 0. I'm not really sure yet, of an untitled show as well. I have been calling it for the last few weeks the Adam and John Show with John and Adam. That's the best title I've thought of so far. And the reason it's called that is because it's not just me that's here to talk about fun stuff in the production world, but also Adam is with me as well. Hello, Adam. Can you see and hear me just fine, I hope?
I can hear you just fine. Thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure to have you with me, and the two of us are in such a similar position, I think, in what we're up to on our day-to-day, week-to-week, how we think about productions. So the idea is that the two of us are going to get together quite regularly. We haven't decided on a schedule yet, but we're going to just talk about what's new in our applications, what's new in the world of production, what interests us, what fun ideas that we have, and I think in future shows we'll really dig into the kind of applications that you build and the kind of tools that you use, Adam. But I think just for the sake of this episode 0, episode 1, let's tell people exactly how you fit into the sort of world of broadcast production or video production or ATEM productions.
Sure. So I'm the developer of an app called Mix Effect, which is a controller for Blackmagic ATEM video switchers on macOS, iPadOS, and iOS. And I wrote this app several years ago, almost 3 years ago now. I came into the broadcast industry somewhat late and somewhat new. When the pandemic hit, I wanted to learn more about kind of video streaming, online events, because that was what I was doing in my job. And so I bought an ATEM Mini Pro, and I said, "This is great. This is fantastic." But I really wanted a downstream keyer button on that ATEM Mini Pro. Didn't have a button like that. So I looked into writing my own app, and that one little button soon became many buttons and soon became Mix Effect.
Since it was NAB this past week, where when we're recording this, NAB is just finished, so we wanted to just jump through a few of the announcements there, and I think we've picked out mostly Blackmagic ones because I know that that's something the two of us are sort of circling around and interesting in and seeing what they're up to. So let's dig into a few interesting things that we found from NAB 2024 and maybe some thoughts we have on those things.
Sounds good. Just for viewers who might not be as familiar with NAB, that's the National Association for Broadcasters. So they have an annual event in Las Vegas where basically all the production, post-production, live production companies come off to show their wares. So think of it like CES for broadcast.
For sure. And they were seeing fun things that were announced, like these new ATEM Constellation 1ME and 2ME 4Ks. So I built this little spreadsheet so I can keep track of ATEM switchers, and I just realized there's a mistake in it, so I'm going to fix that live here. But my plan is to try and document ATEMs as they come out, and then keep a real close track on their features, and when they've been released, and a link to their actual page on the Blackmagic site. The reason for this is if you ever want to compare ATEMs on the Blackmagic site, you will have yourself quite the challenge finding all of them and navigating through navigating through all of the different pages just to find all these tech specs. I dare you to go to that website and try to find all of these things in an easy manner.
The other interesting thing is when they release new models, they typically remove old models so you don't see them ever again. So this spreadsheet is actually great to document the historical record of all the ATEMs that Blackmagic has released over the years.
That's true. I have all the hidden fields of all these the old gray ATEMs I call them. But I'm going to just hide those again because this NAB release was actually sort of marked the end of all of those gray ATEMs. There was a few that were still for sale on the site until this new 1ME Constellation 4K and 2ME Constellation 4K were released like a week ago. Until that point, there were still some of those old gray style ATEMs on there. But now we're all, let's say, up to date on this more metally black looking finish, or in the ATEM many cases the plastic black. It's strange to see all those ATEMs on the site actually, even as soon as last week or 2 weeks ago, because whenever you think about a person going to buy an ATEM today who doesn't know much about ATEMs, and they could still buy one of those previous 4K 1ME or 2ME switchers. They were getting themselves into a feature set that was way behind. They didn't have scalers on them. They didn't have any of the advanced audio stuff on them. But now I feel like we're nicely up to date with these constellations. I'm not thinking that either of those are ones that we're going to buy. Is that something that you've been thinking about buying, a 4K constellation, Adam?
I wouldn't mind having one, but having just bought the ATEM 2ME Constellation HD in January, I don't think I'm ready to upgrade quite yet to 4K. Plus, I don't have 4K cameras, so the HD life is still fine for me.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is who are these for, right? Like, I know a lot of people. Just this week, I was working with a company who has a couple of these 8K constellations, but everything they do is in HD. Like almost 100% of what they do is in HD. There may be like one small gig that maybe is 4K. For them, even a 4ME switcher is very rarely used as well on big jobs. It's typically 2MEs that you really want. So I would imagine they would even get away with the Constellation HD 4ME, but that wasn't a switcher whenever they purchased theirs. And for my case, I mean, I have the 2ME HD version behind me as well. And I'm a bit like you, Adam. I'd have to change an awful lot of things here in the studio just to bring myself up to a 4K production. Even with just the cameras to the ATEM, that part I don't even have set up. Never mind on the other end, the recording, the streaming, holding all of this footage. I always thought it was a fun idea to try and go down the 4K path, and then you start building your cart of all the items, and you realize like this makes no sense. That I don't need this stuff at all.
Exactly. No, in January when I rebuilt my streaming setup, I had to buy the 2ME HD, but I also had to buy HyperText, a web presenter. I have an Ultimat to do my green screen, so it's definitely a significant financial outlay. I was joking with people, like I bought this right around the time when the Apple Vision Pro was announced, and people were balking at the price of the Apple Vision Pro. Oh my gosh, it's like $3,500 before accessories, and I'm like, I think I just bought 2 Apple Vision Pros to upgrade my streaming setup. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, on a side note then, or well, not side note since we're talking about it, but in terms of your gear then, are you happy with that purchase now that you've seen these new switchers come out? You could have waited a bit longer, a couple of weeks, and bought, a couple of months, and bought the 4K version, and then maybe you'd have that in a few years' time whenever you maybe do upgrade to 4K, but maybe you're happy enough with what you've got?
I'm pretty happy with what I got. And the reason is because ATEM switchers last a long time. If you scroll up to like when the ATEM Mini Pro ISO was announced, it was, let's take a look, 2020. And they're still selling it.
Yeah.
It's 4 years. And the device is still great. It still works if you're, an HDMI workflow. So there's these ATEM switchers last a long time. And you were saying how it was like the last hurrah of the gray switchers. Those lasted a long, long time, and they'll still be in use by many people for many, many years. So the Constellation 2ME HD will be fine for me. And when I do upgrade, I can always sell it and probably still get some good value out of it.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I have connected to my computer right now, running this setup for me is the ATEM Mini Pro, and I got it basically when it came out, and it's working just fine. There's no problems with it. It's going nowhere.
Yeah, it's my kind of backup switcher that I have on my desk right here. So actually, let me switch and show you what that looks like. Right there. So you see my ATEM Mini Pro is kind of like hiding back here, and then down here, which you can't see in the camera, is my kind of rolling rack case that has the Constellation and all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to monopolize all the time talking about these switchers because I feel like if you have looked into the HD versions before of the 4K versions that they just announced, then it's effectively the same thing, but it can go up to 2160p 60 instead of 1080p 60. But otherwise, I don't think I saw any other differences at all in this 4K model. So if you know about those ones, then these ones just make sense if that's the 4K workflow makes sense for you.
Right. I think though the community of Blackmagic ATEM users, they really wanted to see something like an ATEM Mini 4K, where there's like an ATEM Mini 4K SDI. And so they were a little disappointed, I think, at that. But I'd say maybe wait. You know, this was NAB, typically geared towards kind of professional broadcast use. And so maybe they'll have like an announcement later this year to show off something else.
That's possible. I would be surprised to see the 4K version of the Mini. Currently, they don't have any cameras that do HDMI 4K. So they'd have to. You'd think that they'd want to offer 4K over HDMI before they, or at the same time as they offer a 4K HDMI switcher.
Unless
That's sort of my.
unless it's SDI based.
Yeah, that's true. There could be the ATEM SDI, ATEM Mini SDI. What do they call it again? Even I can't keep
ATEM
up. Yeah, the
SDI.
ATEM SDI 4K could. No, but that would be a weird name. It doesn't really ring quite right. I'm also thinking, like in your case, you have that ATEM Mini Pro sitting in front of you on your desk, which is a perfect little switcher to webcam into Zoom maybe, or small little systems like that. In 4K, does that really make sense for those kind of users? I really don't see it. This has been quite an interesting one from Blackmagic last week. The micro panel, the idea being it's almost the same size and dimensions of the ATEM Mini Extreme. Sits on your desk, has broadcast style buttons which are the same as the big expensive panels, and you can connect it up and control a switcher, any of the ATEM switchers with it. In fact, up to a 4ME ATEM. You can see that it has buttons to go from all 4 MEs, which is interesting in such a small little device, and control your macros, your program preview, some transition effects, and then the upstream and downstream keys as well. The question mark that everyone put against this that I spoke to was that it was USB or Bluetooth only, just like the controller for the Resolve, where you have to connect it up to your computer and talk to the software. And in this case, you have to connect it up to your computer via Bluetooth or USB, talk through the ATEM software control to an ATEM that's connected to that ATEM software control. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I want to have a go at it and see how that feels whenever I get it in my hands.
Yeah, the reason probably they did this is they didn't want to take up another controller connection with the ATEM. So as people who have lots of ATEMs may know, the ATEMs can only have maybe up to like 5, maybe a few more on the more expensive models, active connections at a time. So these are devices or software that can control the ATEM, such as ATEM software control, such as Companion, such as My App Mix Effect. So if they added that kind of network control using the micro panel, that would be yet another device connecting to it, which could result into some lost connections if you try to connect too many devices to the ATEM. So that's kind of the reason why I think they went that approach.
If you were to buy this device and connect it to your ATEM and it had a network control connection built into it, it would actually, in theory, be a replacement for one of those other ways of controlling. So in my mind, it wouldn't actually be a fourth or a fifth connection. It would be a replacement for possibly one of the other ways that you have been connecting to ATEMs previously. But sure. Yeah, I guess I could see your argument.
With the advanced panels, those are the much larger ones. If you pull up a photo of that.
Oh, there's plenty of them on here.
Yeah. So if you look at the advanced panels, these are much larger. They use the direct a network connection. So they're not using USB or Bluetooth. But the benefits of this, which is quite large, this one, and quite expensive, is that you can control basically every feature of the ATEM switcher from one of these advanced panels. Versus the micro panel, you can only control a subset. You can basically do all the main things you want to do. But you can't do things. I don't think you can switch between media stills on this unless you kind of assign it to a macro. So either macro, or you have to use ATEM software control or something else. Again, Companion, Mix Effect, something else to switch your media player stills. So it is much more limited, even though it kind of gives you like basic switching controls right in front of you.
But one thing you just made me think of there was, I'm assuming that these buttons are assignable though, and they're not inputs. They're not fixed to be the inputs 1 through 10 and then a shift 2 to 20, because that would mean that you could not use this to switch to super source or color bars or like you just said, like a media player. So it looks like they have those buttons where you can pop off the top and change the sort of the number that's written on here, or insert your own little piece of card.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, because it is connected to ATEM software control, you can remap the buttons in that app. So I would assume that that mapping maps to the micro panel.
You would set it up in there the way you want it, and then it would show up in that order effectively here on the micro panel. Makes sense.
Kind of funny that they released this product is like, because the week before I was at a Vision Dev Camp in Santa Clara, and I hacked together this prototype of this new version of MixEffect called MixEffect Vision, which was, if you have an Apple Vision Pro, this is not released yet, but it creates a virtual version of a control panel that's running MixEffect software kind of like through your Apple Vision Pro. And when I saw the micro panel, I immediately thought of my app. And if you take a look, if you can zoom in,
that's so funny.
You can see, you know, there's right now, I'm kind of emulating an ATEM Mini Extreme, although this one was controlling my constellation. But you see you have 8 buttons. There's an ME switch at the top that's currently selected at ME1. I had the keyers, which are I think those are the keyers on the right. I'm not sure. I can't see them. Don't remember what I wrote.
Can't quite see either, but yeah.
And then I also had these 4 buttons that were not used for macros, but were used to recall SuperSource presets. So you see the ones that are in orange. So in the demo, I was just switching between 4 different SuperSource presets. And then I also had the fader bar on the right. I guess I'm thinking along the right ways as Blackmagic is.
What's funny is like you've very much built what would be the hardware equivalent, instead of taking like an abstraction back from that and saying like, okay, because this would be quite difficult. Like, what could a switching panel look like in a virtual environment? But I like that you've went very robust with it and said, okay, actually, this is a panel that I've designed and it sits on the table just like the micro panel. I'd love to see the micro or MixEffect Vision version where you kind of say like, you know what, I'm going to throw out all of the previous notions of what these panels might look like, and maybe you're like pushing up in the air, or I don't know what that would be instead of a actual panel.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways we could go about it. All of if you look at the MixEffect interface, you know, they're all in the switcher interface. There's all these what I call panels, and they're all flat in this one place. You kind of scroll up and down. But I can certainly see a world where I explode the panels out into space. So you'd have your fader bar, and it just be, you can move it and position it anywhere you want. You have your preview buttons, your program buttons, and then your cut and auto buttons, and you can again arrange them however you want and kind of create your own custom control surface. Or I can see something like this where you kind of define a physical object and then you kind of lay out buttons. So there's different approaches, and it'll be interesting to explore that. I still don't have an Apple Vision Pro. Maybe I'll get one in the future, but right now I don't know how many MixEffect users actually have Apple Vision Pro. So the market is quite small.
It is a very, very small market, and you spent all your money on other equipment anyway. So you know, maybe next year you can get a Vision Pro,
or just buy more copies of MixEffect, and then I can buy an Apple Vision Pro.
The new little color panel.
Right. So it can be used on iPad and Macs and PCs. And basically, if you use DaVinci Resolve to do color grading, you can use this, connect it to your computer or your iPad as seen in the screenshot, and use the little trackballs and push the buttons to manipulate the interface. So one of the things that Blackmagic released over the past, I think, year was an iPad version of DaVinci. It doesn't have all the features of the desktop version, but it has a lot of the features. And so they added this slot in the back where you can just kind of just attach your iPad, and then it connects using Bluetooth. And then you can use those physical switches to control the interface. And I thought that was really interesting because Grant Petty, the CEO of Blackmagic, also in his extremely long, kudos to him for lasting that long through his life, through that recording. I don't know if he recorded it all in one take. He also announced, as part of an ATEM software update to the switchers, it hasn't come out as the time that we're recording, but he mentioned how the USB out from the ATEMs will be able to send out the multi-view signal. Right now, they always send out the program signal, but they'll be able to send out the multi-view. And I thought, oh, that's a very interesting idea. Why are they doing that? And I had actually been working simultaneously on a new version of Mix Effect that makes it a lot easier to bring the multi-view into the application. And so let me see if I can pull this up. If you can see here, I have the multi-view running within Mix Effect. So I can scroll here, and you can see down here I have USB video. So I have if I can switch back to my other camera right here, you see this USB cable right here. That is plugged into a USB to HDMI video capture card. So I plug in the multi-view. Since it's coming from the Constellation, I convert it to HDMI using a microconverter. Then I plug that into this little USB stick and plug it into the iPad, and then I get the USB video. And what's cool about it is that I'm using my existing Mix Effect feature to overlay touch buttons on top of this video. So this is a video that is coming from the USB webcam, and I can touch here, nothing's happening. But if I activate this button down here, I'll use the mouse, you can see now that I kind of overlay kind of things on top of the video. And now I can touch and I can switch. So I can touch and it'll do a switch. If I double tap, it will do an auto transition. You can kind of see it happening in real time. And if I wanted to switch one of these inputs to preview, I can just tap it, and you can see there that it got switched to the preview. And then I can also double tap and I'll do a straight cut. So I'll go back to this, and then I'll double tap and I'll do an auto transition. So you can see how the next version of Mix Effect, I don't know when it's going to come out, hopefully in a couple of weeks, will allow anyone to kind of just plug in a USB external camera and then turn on the multi-view overlay, and then they can use Mix Effect using touch. So the previous version of Mix Effect, you could have done this, but it required a little bit more effort. So it required you to use Video Ninja to stream the multi-view signal from a computer, and then within Mix Effect, you would kind of like access that stream's URL and then display it in Mix Effect. And you can do the same thing with the multi-view, the touch display and stuff like that. But now it'll be a lot easier. Just plug in a USB camera and you're off to the races.
Yeah, I think I covered that in a video on the channel here about how to set that up. And once it's set up, it works exactly as you'd expect it to, but it is that sort of multi-step process of setting things up, and maybe you're at a show and it's going live in the next 1 or 2 hours, and you don't have time to troubleshoot. Maybe the Video Ninja thing doesn't work, or there's something happening here and here and here and here. So it's really nice to see that you're able to bring in that multi-view right into the application potentially pretty soon, and then just show that to people, let them go from there.
So you can imagine like that DaVinci Resolve micro color panel. You can imagine a person using Mix Effect. They just bring their A10 Mini Pro or the A10 Mini Extreme, and then maybe they get Aaron Parecki. If you're watching this video, you can create like a 3D little slot for someone to slot their iPad in, and then they just plug in the multi-view into Mix Effect, and then they have a complete kind of system, monitor, editing surface, and they have the all the other extra features of Mix Effect that you can't get by pushing the buttons on the physical switcher device.
But one thing I do know is that, or I believe from watching that update event, was that the reason for multi-view coming out of the USB is so they can use the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO for the instant replay feature that they've added to DaVinci Resolve. So there was talk, I think Grant mentioned during that update, where while you're running this replay into Resolve here, you can actually, of course, grab point of interests and create like a really quick edit for either upload on social or to be shown live during a production. But what you'll notice if I scroll down to this section here is, of course, you'll just want to watch the multi-view and wait for action to happen. So there is a quick mention of that here. Yes, in Resolve, you can pull in the full multi-view and watch it as a camera feed on within your Resolve setup. You can watch this multi-view, and of course you'll need some way of getting that multi-view into the computer. Now, with the bigger ATEMs, you have plenty of outputs. You can send one in via capture card into Resolve, but I believe the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO or the SDI version, what they are thinking of doing is using the USB output on you can use that second USB output on those extreme switchers and then connect it up to Resolve and watch the multi-view, wait for action to happen, and then jump in and mark your points of interest.
They showed on the replay keyboard, that's the other little hardware panel that they had, there was actually a dedicated multi-view button. I think I saw another video where the guy was pushing it multiple times and it was switching between multi-view and program. It's one of those orange buttons, red orange buttons in the upper right.
Exactly. So that's the idea behind those quick access buttons there. I am interested to see though if they'll bring the multi-view output to all of the ATEM switchers then, because if they are saying that you are going to use that USB output for bringing into replay, and you'll need an ISO version of a switcher to do that replay, then will they bother bringing the USB webcam multi-view output to a ATEM Mini Pro like I have, or will they just save it for some of the other switchers? It's hard to say.
Yeah, we'll see. One of the other things they mentioned was, but they didn't talk too much in depth, was network record. So through the Ethernet port. And, you know, for switchers that only have one USB port or even two, usually one of the USB ports goes to a recording disk, a USB disk, and the other one goes to the computer's webcam. But now if one of them is like program to a computer, one of them is multi-view, then how do you record? Now they can use the Ethernet jack.
I'm always keen to get a device in my hands and then see what happens whenever you press, you know, this button or that button, or does it work the way we think it's going to work? Is there any issues in the use case that I had in mind?
Definitely. And they certainly had a lot of product announcements. This is like the most packed announcement I've seen from Blackmagic since I've been working in the industry. So speaking of which, Blackmagic announced a lot of new products at NAB. Let's briefly take a look at some of the ones that they announced.
Exactly. Cameras galore, and it's not something that I know much about, to be honest with you. Well, I mean, I know enough about certain cameras, which is fine, but it's not a real passion of mine to get, like, you know, camera tests and see how it is in low light and see how it is with... I can't even think of any camera terms right now off the top of my head, so that's how, you know, little I know about this stuff. But they did announce the Cine 12K, which is quite a beast of a camera, it would seem. The Pixis 6K, I think I'm saying that okay. They have the media dock here, the media module and the media dock. So you sort of insert these media modules into the camera so you can pull all the data off there. And then there's a dock specifically made to accept these media modules. What else, Adam?
They also announced the Ursa Cine 17K, although that's coming maybe later this year. So an even more powerful model.
So they have things that they've pre-announced this time as well.
I don't think any of these are going to be a replacement for my Canon 5D Mark IV that's sitting in front of me. Although the Pixis does look intriguing. I've always wondered, like, if I were to get a Blackmagic camera, what would I get? Would I get a pocket cinema with an EF mount, since I have a bevy of Canon lenses? Would I get this Pixis, which looks very impressive? Or is there another kind of small box size camera that also supports EF lenses? Don't they have like a micro studio camera.
Yeah, this is the thing. They have so many cameras these days. So for EF style, so we have the more pocket cinema cameras, which are, I have a couple of the 4K ones with the MFT. They also have something I would probably push you in the line of, but they're also MFT, which is the studio cameras here as well. They also have the micro studio camera, another MFT one. So none of these are really going to help you with your EF lenses, unfortunately.
So I guess I'll wait a little longer to upgrade my camera setup.
Don't they have some of the 6K ones? What lens options do they have for these 6K ones?
That one has an EF lens on it.
So you have some options here.
Yeah, so this would have been great maybe if I was on a HDMI workflow, since it has an HDMI out port. But then if I went with this, I'll just have to get another converter to get it into my SDI workflow. So that's why I was thinking maybe the Pixis, but it is quite large, and I don't think it's meant for studio. It looks like it's more like a mobile rig that you kind of move around.
Yeah, it feels like if you're going to run around town and shoot some more, I would say, artistic style things, maybe. If you're shooting for that style, then this makes a lot of sense. But I don't know about mounting this behind your prompter and leaving it up there. It feels like the wrong choice for that.
Looks like overkill. So
Right.
I think I'll pass on this one.
We also have a bunch of 2010 announcements as well. So IP 2010 converters, and I don't even know which one to start with. This IP presentation converter was an interesting one, where it was very specifically aimed at capturing presentations. They have IP to HDMI, and then the other way around as well. The IP rack mount converters for the infrastructure that I have here and the gigs that I do and the reason that I buy equipment, I would say nowhere near the investment or use case for 2010 IP converters or any of that level of stuff. And I'm guessing, Adam, since we talked about it earlier, you've just bought a bunch of new SDI based things. You're probably not looking to buy any of this converters either.
Definitely not. I'm in the same camp as you. I have just a 1 gig network here. I don't have any real 10G routers or switches. I think my fastest thing is like 2.5G kind of Ethernet dock. So definitely not the target market for this, but I can see as people are getting into more kind of Ethernet based kind of video, switching, and they want to send data through, this is kind of the technology that Blackmagic has wedded itself to. So it makes sense that at NAB they release a whole bevy of products that support this.
And then one other thing I noticed that they sort of announced, it's not necessarily a new product, but it was actually there was another new product in this category where I'm looking through here, the SmartView 4K G3, which is been a while since they updated their monitors. I'd love to see a new SmartView. This one has been around for a long time and it's still looking a bit dated. But what I was going to get to was the video assists all got their prices. I don't know if I could say slashed. I don't remember exactly how much discount or how much they went down by, but they changed the prices for all their video assist models, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I think it was about a couple $100. Do you use a video assist?
Not currently, really, but for a long time I used, and I still have, the previous Video Assist 5. I'm just realizing now that I don't even have the 3G version. I don't think I have that one. I definitely have a Video Assist 5, and I used to use it a lot for conferences and events. It was a nice little monitor to have going around, but in general I find 5-inch monitors to just be a bit too small for what I use them for. 7-inch is a bit better. So if I was in the market right now, I would happily buy one of these, likely the 3G model of the Video Assist 7. Yeah,
I have a kind of a cheapo Feel World. It's 5-inch one, and it is like you said, it is quite small, especially if you wanted to use it as like a multi-view.
No, in fact, for this show here, for us to record, I'm recording my own camera feed and audio, and I've connected up my HyperDeck Shuttle HD to a 5-inch Ninja, and I was trying to navigate the tiny little menu on that Shuttle earlier, and 5 inches is nowhere near good enough for the tiny little box menu that comes with the HyperDeck recorder. It's too small.
So they also announced some stuff with Blackmagic Cloud and storage. So new kind of rack mount storage things. And again, this is I would not mind having these, but they don't kind of match the use case that I have right now.
I have the Cloud Pod here somewhere, and I haven't turned it on in over a year. It's just it worked fine and everything, but it just for my workflow by myself, it never really was something that I utilized very much, which makes me happy that I never spent what is quite a chunk of money to go for some of these bigger ones. And this is the one you just mentioned here, the Cloud Store Max that they introduced now, which is huge. It's up to 48 terabytes. That's wild.
That is a lot.
Okay, so that sort of brings us to the end of our trial, our first episode of getting together and chatting about these fun things. I think we'll have lots of different random discussions over the next year until we have our NAB 2025 live show. Let's put that in the calendar and then see if it ever happens. But this has been a fun first try. And until then, I suppose we can hear feedback and comments in the chat about what kind of stuff we should cover, if we should delve into our application specifically, or keep it more about video production, or just like a healthy mix of everything. I'm quite keen as well, Adam, if you are bringing other people in to talk about their products or their ideas or their thoughts on certain products.
Certainly. I'm using Zoom ISO to bring us in. We had a few little complications getting this set up, so hopefully this video turned out well. But in the future, we'll be able to bring in more participants and have a kind of like a roundtable discussion. So I'm looking forward to that. If you have people that you'd like to see on the show, definitely leave it in the comments below, or send us an email, or just contact us on the various internets.
It's a good place to find us as well is on the Discord server, which I usually leave a link to in the video description. So you can just join in and ask us some questions in there, or join other conversations about this fun stuff. And I guess that's it for this one until the next one, right?
Yeah, we'll see you in the next show.
Bye.